Morning, everyone. Just clicking a few buttons, getting things started. Well, I think we'll just give another minute for those who want to come and join, and then we will get today's session started. So it's going to be like, if you've got this, there's a little bit of pepper, a little bit of red wine, white wine, rosé, which is the kind of thing within the beer and the bit. You've got the pop-up bar, you've got a few parasols, you've got cozy outside, and you've got one's coming in thick and fast. And then and she's doing more Kristen looks. So if it's again with weather, the table that we use for pre-wedding nipples, that could probably need to be tidied up. So when you've given the liquid to Fab, I think that's the worst of it through. Becky, you okay to just keep an eye out for any late admissions?
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Oh, I thought it had died down, but everyone's joined in again. I am going to get started. So let me I hope everyone can see my screen okay. So good morning, everyone. We're really delighted to have you join Fusion Occupational Health for today's complimentary mindfulness session. It's delivered by Russell Treasure from Treasure Your Wellbeing. So this session is being delivered as part of Mental Health Awareness Week. It's a valuable opportunity to pause, reflect, and recognise the importance of looking after our mental health in the same way that we do our physical health.
So today's mindfulness session is designed to give you a moment to slow down, reset, and take away a practical tool that can be used in everyday life. Mindfulness is just one of the many approaches that can help manage stress, build resilience, and support overall well-being.
We also know that mental health is best supported proactively. So alongside sessions like this today, support is also available via Fusion through tools such as our mini mental health check-ins. These are held online with a qualified counsellor and allow colleagues the opportunity to self-reflect. We also have available our accredited mental health first aid training to help build confidence in the organisation around supporting your colleagues' mental health. And finally, with our innovative digital app known as the Automated Care Pathways. So Automated Care Pathways, or also known as ACP, is designed to empower employees to take an active role in their own health and well-being. Rather than a one-size-fits-all approach, ACP supports individuals to move through a guided mental health journey at their own pace. So it uses evidence-based tools and techniques such as CBT, mindfulness, sleep sessions, and more. By making ACP available to your employees, you can strengthen wellbeing support, promote that early intervention, and create a more consistent employee wellbeing experience within your organisation.
Thank you, Stacey. So for now, we encourage you to take this time for yourself to get comfortable, step away from distractions where possible, and take whatever you need from the session. I'll now hand you over to Russell to begin.
Thanks, Rebecca. Good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to see so many people have joined us today. And my name's Russell Treasure, and I've been a mindfulness coach now for approximately 13 years. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I train people from the Cheshire Police to the Super League rugby teams. I've worked with 4 of the Super League teams, schools, and all in between, one-to-ones, companies, charities, etc. So what I'd like to do today over the next sort of 50 minutes or so is talk to you about the brain, how we process occurrences in our lives, when things happen that we don't enjoy, and how we can use mindfulness to change our outlook on what's happened to us. So if we think of the brain as having three main areas, I don't know if anybody's ever read The Chimp Paradox by Professor Steve Peters, but it's one of the books that I've used, and I've probably listened to it on audiobooks 30 or 40 times, to help me to understand what is going on in my brain, what the mind is doing. And it's a useful resource. I would highly recommend reading it or listening to it. And it explains to us that we have these three main parts. One is the computer, which helps us to do automated tasks like tying a shoelace or riding a bike, things we don't have to think about. The second and slightly slower area of the brain is the chimp. So the whole book is around the chimp really, but it's also useful to know the other two areas. And the slowest part of the brain is the human. Now the human's sort of based behind here, the forehead, prefrontal cortex, and the chimp is based right in the middle of the brain because it is one of the oldest parts of the brain. It's used to help us to survive. So the chimp is really called the amygdala, and we have one in each hemisphere. So the amygdala triggers fight or flight. Now, 2 million years ago, when we were running away from predators, it was really useful. So the amygdala really is the reason why we're all still here as humans, because we learned how to run away from danger. But today, in today's modern civilization, that actual threat to our lives doesn't really enter. Most days are completely free of an actual threat to our lives. So the amygdala is so entrenched in our brains. It's been around for so long, for millions of years before we started walking on our back legs, that it's not changed. So if we hear or see or smell or touch anything to do with danger using our senses, then the amygdala kind of is ready. It's ready to fire up and switch on your muscles and get you ready to run away or fight, so fight or flight. We also have faint and freeze, but I'm not going to touch on those too much today. So fight or flight happens when the amygdala or the chimp decides that there is a potential threat. So it would have been a tiger or a lion or something like that, but now it's things that happen to us in our daily lives. And the amygdala turns what should really be everyday occurrences into, the sentence that sort of occurs to me most of the time is that I'm going to starve and die alone in the jungle. So, for example, if somebody insulted you, or if you did something wrong, that you were sort of worried about, the amygdala actually turns on this fight or flight. So if you've had gritted teeth, or if your shoulders are kind of up like this, or you clench your fists, or any of those type of physical reactions, it's because the amygdala has hijacked you. So, for example, if I've got, say, my rent to pay next week, and I only have £50 in the bank, my amygdala will say something like this. It will say, you're going to get thrown out of your home, and then you'll be left to starve and die alone in the jungle. So it has the same sort of effect that it had when we were swinging about in the trees 2 million years ago. And this happens all the time. It's constantly, so that the chimp is constantly on guard, and it's awaiting something to happen that it can see as a threat. So an insult, so if somebody says, I don't like your shoes, your chimp jumps in, and it might get your shoulders up, it grit your teeth or clench your fists. And it tends to think that, I'm being threatened here, even though it's not a physical threat. It's just a verbal threat. And the chimp wants to run away or fight. So it might respond by saying something like, I don't like your shoes. or it might run away and hide and say, well, I'm being thrown out of the troop of chimps because this person doesn't like me or doesn't like my shoes or whatever it might be. So this interaction between these three main parts of the brain are what drives our everyday lives, apart from when we're asleep. So if we are led, some of you out there might recognize these habits. It's something that we've been training to do since we're 4 or 5 years old. So what happens is, if something keeps happening, it goes into the computer, and the computer remembers that. So when you needed to tie your shoelace, you don't have any thought process. You just tie your shoelace. But if it's something new, or something that the chimps are not sure about, then it will take over. And hence we end up with shallow breathing, fast breathing, higher blood pressure, higher heart rate. And of course, these things aren't good for us. It's not something we really want to happen. What we need to figure things out, things that need a decision from our human. So we need to use this part of our brain here to get a more logical, calm output from what's happened to us. So all of these things that happen to us every day send us as humans into kind of micro stresses. So you might find that over the years, doesn't matter how old you are, but you'll find that you may have muscle tension in a certain part of your body. For me, it always used to be my shoulders. So my shoulders would come up. And that's effectively making me smaller. So, and you might not realize that this is going on. It might just be normal for you. I always quote my father, God rest his soul, that he was angry his entire life, but he never knew that. He didn't realize he was angry most days. So he just carried on being angry as if it was normal. So if I say to you now, this is how your brain works, hopefully you'll get a good idea as to why you react in certain ways. And if for anybody who drives, you'll have experienced road rage. Either, you may have committed a low-level road rage incident, or there may have been road rage against you. So people in the cars may be rushing around, late to get to work, and people actually turn into chimps while they're driving the car. So if you are late and you're rushing, all the people in front of you are driving slowly, you think they're idiots, and you might wave your hand at them and say something. Or you might be not late and somebody is trying to get past you because they're late, and you might have noticed that they've got kind of chimp tendencies, this sort of aggression or rage for when you're driving your car. So now that we've got that knowledge, now that we know what's happening when occurrences happen to us, I'd like you to now think about, well, how could we change our outcome? How could we change how we behave when something's happened? So, for example, if I could get my human in front of the chimp, and I realise I haven't got enough money to pay my rent next week, I might come up with solutions, whereas the chimp just runs away or fights. So I might be able to press pause on the chimp, because the chimp is just making suggestions. It's advising us what we can do, and we can change how we behave. So I might think, if my human's in charge up here, if my prefrontal cortex has got the blood, I may be able to say, well, hang on a minute, I can work more hours, or I can sell something, or I can borrow the money. And when we do that, the very act of creating a solution to the challenge that we've got of having no money to pay the rent actually calms the chimp down. So you find, if you're holding your shoulders up while you're thinking about this money problem, as you come up with solutions, you find that the chimp goes away. It kind of falls back to sleep. So that's the sort of thing that we can do using mindfulness. To give it its full term, it's mindfulness-based stress reduction. Okay, and to use mindfulness as a tool to change your outcomes sounds simple, and it takes a little bit of training, which I'm going to show you today. I'm actually going to take you through a mini session of mindfulness to give you an idea as to how you feel, how you think, what you're thinking about, and to recognize when your body is actually all tensed up and ready for action. And as soon as you notice that your body's ready and it's tense, then you can say, aha, the chimp's in charge. So I need to now think about what I'm thinking about. And I think we're one of the only animals on the planet who can actually do that. Dolphins may be able to do it, or whales or something, but in terms of scientific proof, we are the only animals that can think about what we're thinking about. So if you're sad and you've done a bit of mindfulness training, you might be able to say, well, why am I feeling sad? What is it that's led me to this emotion? Or if you're angry, I mean, anger is one of the quickest and the hardest things to control. But if you practice it, it's possible to notice that you're getting angry through the physical outcomes, the tense muscles, or you might say something horrible to somebody. And you can actually say, hang on a minute, I'm going to press pause and I'm just going to notice how I'm feeling, and then think about why I'm feeling that way, and have a kind of an internal dialogue. We can't get rid of the chimp, but we can become friends with it. So we can say, hang on a minute, my chimp's called Charlie, by the way. So if you've read the book, you'll know that Steve Peters advises you to give your chimp a name. And I can have an internal dialogue with my chimp and say, hang on a minute, Charlie. Thanks for getting ready to save me, but we're not about to die. We've just not got enough money, or somebody's just said, I don't like your shoes or your football team or whatever it might be. So I can have a different outcome. So if somebody insults me, for example, I don't like your shoes, I can say back, okay. So instead of attacking them or running away, I can just say, okay, that's fine. Your opinion's fine. It's not something I can change, but we're not going to get into a kind of an argument about it or any kind of friction. So mindfulness is the practice of thinking about what you're thinking about. And if you can do that before you react, so before you respond to somebody doing something you don't like, or maybe you've done something that you think afterwards you think that was a bit silly, I was a bit foolish to do that, and beating yourself up, you can actually stop yourself from going through that, that down that path of a higher blood pressure and heart rate, and getting stressed and tense, and then maybe having some sort of fallout with somebody. So mindfulness, to give you a little bit of history, actually is probably 700, 800, 900 years, even maybe longer ago, that it was in the Far East. So it came from Buddhism, which isn't a religion, by the way, it's just a lifestyle. And a guy called John Kabat-Zinn brought it over to the West, America first, of course, in about the 70s. And if you want to get more information, he's written some great books and he's done some great videos on YouTube as well. And he brought it over here and started to kind of spread the word, and then it became a little bit more mainstream. So 15 years ago, people might have looked at you with a strange look if you'd said I practice mindfulness, but today it's fairly mainstream and nearly everybody's heard of it. And as I say, I've been teaching it for 13 years now. It's a fantastic way of not only changing how your life goes. So this sounds like a big statement, and it doesn't happen overnight. You do have to practice it, and it changes your outcomes and what happens to you in terms of when you have any arguments or anything goes wrong that you think, oh, why did that happen? I wish that hadn't happened. And you can change how you feel about these things. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to take one of the parts of mindfulness, which is a 20-hour course if you go and do mindfulness at college or online. It's an 8 or 10 week course. But I'm just going to pick one of those sessions, and we're going to perform that session now. There are other parts of mindfulness. So if you did a course, you'd be doing things like mindful describing. Now, if somebody says to you, what's the weather doing over your way, and it's raining and windy and cold, you might say, oh, it's miserable. So you've described the weather, which you can't change, using an emotional term. So that's your judgment on the weather. It's miserable, it's awful. Okay, so how you might mindfully describe the weather is to say that it's raining and it's windy and it's quite cold. But your way of taming the chimp in terms of I've got to go out in this weather might be that the solution is wear a big coat or a scarf. And the chimp goes, oh, okay, so we're not going to die because of this cold weather. We're going to get wet. We're going to die. We're going to be cold. We're going to die. So you say to the chimp, well, I'm going to wear a big coat. I'm going to put a hat on or a scarf or gloves. And the chimp goes, okay, over to you. And it kind of hands the baton back to your human. And literally what's happening in your brain, which is a machine, is blood is being transferred from the amygdala, which the chimp has fired up, back to your human, and your human decides to wear the big coat. So mindful describing is one area. You may mindfully eat, and you'll find that if you do decide to delve into mindfulness a little bit more, that we're using the senses all the time. So you might go out for a walk, maybe say you're walking the dog, and in woods where there are trees, flowers, birds singing, but because you've got maybe a big challenge on your mind, you're not seeing the trees, you're not hearing the birds, you're not feeling your footsteps going through the grass. So you sort of eradicate all of the great stuff that's going on around you, and your mind is fully focused on your challenges, your problems. And I know that because I've been there. I had a fairly big challenge in my life in 2008 for a couple of years, and I was very fortunate. I found this mindfulness class on a Friday night, and I started going, and I realized how much it helped me. But it's very easy to fall into a cycle of despair, sadness, anger, jealousy, any of these sort of negative emotions. So if you're walking along, and now that I've told you that, and you might be walking along and realize that you're thinking about your problems and your challenges. And instead, you refocus your attention on the singing of the birds or the trees or the flowers. You may be able to smell the flowers or hear the breeze blowing through the trees. So all of these things, we use the senses to feed different information into our minds. And instead of using the chimp, we use the human. So we're moving blood around. So that's, as I said, this is literally a machine that is moving blood around. And if you can get blood out of your amygdalas, your chimp, into your human, then you'll see that your body kind of relaxes. You won't clamp your jaw together. I can't ask you and get into a conversation because there are 96 people on the call, but some of you out there, if not most of you, will have at some point will have realized that when you're in that kind of chimp mind, you may clamp your jaw or your shoulders may be up. And they're the first signs that you can actually, I've just had a message from Christina. She does that all the time. And I've delivered this session thousands of times over 13 years. And most people have a reaction to danger or perceived danger, a perceived threat. And it's usually money, health, relationships, or work. It usually comes out of one of those 4 areas. So start to notice that, you know, you're feeling tense, and ask yourself internally, just say, well, why am I feeling tense? So other areas of mindfulness that you could talk about are mindfully eating. So you use the sense of smell, you look at the food, you eat it more slowly, you smell it, you taste it, you feel the touch of the food in your mouth as you're eating. The same could be said of brushing your teeth. And all of these things, if you do enough of them on a regular basis, you start to have more time away from fight or flight. And a lot of people spend a lot of time in fight or flight. So the chimp's in charge. And just for your information, we have, depending on which report you read, we have between 60 and 90,000 thoughts a day. I put that into my calculator once, and it came out as around about 1 thought a second. But about 90% of those thoughts are repetitive. Okay, so we're thinking about the same things over and over again, and you may notice that you're not remembering about what a fantastic holiday you had last year, or the really good things, but we are programmed to think about the negative things. So when you've got something, a message in your mind that keeps coming up, you keep thinking about it, and it creates a kind of micro stress, physical as well as thoughts. You will realize that, you know, you are in one of these micro stresses for quite a high proportion of the day. So I'm going to show you how we can do that, but some of the things you can do, or think about how you're describing things, think about when you're walking, feel your feet touching the floor, and all of these things are distracting your mind from being in fight or flight. And you spend more time in that calm, rational, logical brain than you do in the chimp brain. And when that happens, you start to not be bothered about things as much. So you have fewer arguments, you beat yourself up less from what you think might have been a mistake that you made. And a mindful life is really a different life. It's amazing how much you can change by just thinking about what you're thinking about. There is a much longer description of mindfulness online if you want to look it up, but I prefer that simple sentence. Why are my shoulders up? And I question myself and say, well, what are you scared of? Or, you know, what are you jealous? And then you can have that dialogue and say, well, let's have a solution. You know, jealousy doesn't do us any good anyway. Or I'm frightened because I've not got enough money in the bank, but there are things I can do. And you change your outcomes and how you feel about what happens to you. So this is what we're going to do, guys. I'd like you to, I'm assuming you're all sat down. I'd like you to let the chair support your weight. So feel the small of your back being, you know, rested against the back of the chair. Put your feet flat on the floor and put one hand on each leg, on each thigh. And we're going to go through 3 distinct parts of this session. And as I say, it's a big subject, mindfulness, but this is the one I found over the years that's the easiest for you to experience that feeling of, you know, not worrying about the past and the future, not worrying about things you've done or things other people have done in your past or things that might happen in the future. So you might be worried about the rent or the dentist or anything like that, and your chimp takes over because it thinks that you're going to be damaged. So everybody close your eyes. I think everybody's probably got their cameras off, which is good. Yeah, I think pretty much nearly everybody's got the camera off. So close your eyes. What I'd like you to do first is, the first part of it is we're going to notice tension in our bodies. So we're going to notice how it feels when we're tense, and then how it feels when we're relaxed. And with your eyes closed, and your hands resting on your legs, your feet flat on the floor, I'd like to, when you next breathe in, I'd like you to tense your feet up. And then as you breathe out, relax your feet again. And then the next in-breath, I'd like you to tense your calf muscles. Now, you can do that by pointing your toes up as you breathe in. And then hold on just for a second, feel the tension in your calves. And then as you breathe out, relax them again. Next, I'd like you to tense your thigh muscles or your quads. And you can do that by, as you breathe in, point your toes down. Hold on for a second, feel the tension, and then as you breathe out, relax your feet again. And then on your next available in-breath, I'd like you to tense your glutes. So the biggest muscles in the body are sat on them. As you breathe in, tense your glutes and feel yourself being lifted, pushed upwards out of the chair a millimetre or two. Hold on to that. And then as you breathe out, relax back into the chair. So that's all your flight muscles, okay, or most of them. We use our arms to run as well, but our legs are the main flight muscles. So next, the fight muscles. So with your eyes still closed, I'd like you to squeeze your fists as you breathe in and feel all the tension going up your forearms and your upper arms. And then hold on to that for a second. And then as you breathe out, relax your hands again and let your hands go flat again on your legs. Next in breath, I'd like you to try and touch your ears with your shoulders. And this time, hold on to that tension for about 3 seconds. Just to start feeling the discomfort in those shoulder muscles and across your neck. And then as you breathe out, drop your shoulders all the way back down. Now let's examine the muscles in our face. So we've got nearly 60 muscles that help us to smile or frown. First of all, check out your jaw. Make sure that your teeth are not touching. So if your lips are touching, because breathing in through your nose is best, but your teeth are relaxed. And you can help to do that by touching your tongue to the roof of your mouth. So make sure your jaw's relaxed, and that will relax the temples as well. Next, just check out all of those muscles around your cheekbones, around your eyes, above your eyes, near the eyebrows and the forehead. And then finally your scalp. And when you relax your scalp, you realize that your ears drop down a little bit. So you may have been holding some tension in your scalp. Okay, so that's the whole body is now physically relaxed, but you've also noticed what it feels like when it's tense too. So now, without realizing, you've slowed down your heart rate and your blood pressure, and your breathing will have slowed, all because we just sat here. We don't need to do anything or be anywhere. And the muscles don't need as much oxygen because they're all relaxed. So let's now focus on something that's going to stop us worrying about the past and the future. Let's just think about something that's happening now. And I found that the easiest thing to use is the breath. You can use touch if you like, or you can use hearing, listening to a clock tick. You can look at something and just focus on it. But with our eyes closed, it's really easy to focus on breathing. And the first thing that you notice as you're breathing is a sound. So when you breathe in, it makes a sound, and when you breathe out, it makes a sound, but they're slightly different. So just get your brain to fully focus on the change of the sound between breathing in and breathing out. Okay, so now we're listening to the sound of the in-breath. Notice that that sound creates a movement as well. So your stomach expands as you breathe in. So that the sound of the in-breath inflates your stomach. and the sound of the out breath deflates your stomach. So I'll keep quiet for a few breaths, and you just keep breathing and notice the two things at the same time now, sound and movement. Okay, so now let's notice a third thing that happens when we breathe, and that is that the change of temperature between the in-breath and the out-breath. So it's cool breathing in and warmer breathing out. See if now you can notice all three things at the same time. So the sound of the in-breath inflates your stomach and it feels cool. The sound of the out-breath deflates your stomach and it feels warmer. See if you can get your brain to think about all three things at the same time. Okay, so keep focusing on your breath, but now notice that we think we just breathe in and out. But what actually happens is we have a slight pause. You'll notice at the end of your in-breath, there's a pause before you breathe out, and similarly at the end of the out-breath. So there are actually 4 parts to each breath cycle. You'll notice that in-breath pause, out-breath pause. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to get our minds to focus on the present, on the now, is we're going to just focus on the pause at the end of the out-breath. So at the end of your next out-breath, don't breathe straight back in, count to 2, then breathe in. At the end of your next out breath, count to 3. So we're just widening that gap. We're not holding our breath, we're not holding any tension. We just breathe out, 1, 2, 3, then breathe back in. At the end of the next out breath, count to 4. And at the end of the next out breath, don't count. Just wait for a reasonable amount of time. So don't struggle, don't wait too long. Just wait for a reasonable amount of time and notice what is happening whilst you're waiting to breathe back in. You should notice that there's no sound, no movement, no temperature. You're just waiting. It's also very hard to have any thoughts during that small gap between finishing breathing out and starting breathing in. I'll leave you now. I'll just stay quiet for a few breaths so you can experience that. Okay, now that you have got used to that gap, just notice whether you're thinking or whether anything's going on at all in your mind, just during that period when nothing's happening. And now slowly in your mind, start counting backwards at this sort of speed from 200 to 199, 198, 197, 196, 195, 194, 193, 192, 191, 190, 189. Keep counting down when I fade out. 188, 187. Keep counting down, and if you struggle, you forget where you are, just start again. Okay, just wiggle your fingers and toes, and in your own time, no rush, gently open your eyes. I'll just give you a little while to come back round. And by the way, if anybody does want to make a comment, either pop them in the meeting chat or unmute yourself and talk to me. I don't mind if people want to ask questions or make comments. But ask yourself what happened there. Did you experience a feeling of calmness, or did you maybe nearly fall asleep? For anybody who's struggling to sleep, and I seem to find that just at a guess, 90% of people who come to my groups are struggling with sleep, so either to fall asleep or stay asleep. And that is a fantastic way of falling asleep. It is a really good method to calm your body, so get rid of physical tension, and to get your mind to stop worrying. So when you're laid in bed, your mind is just worrying about stuff because it's got a much better sort of an environment. You're not doing anything else, you're just worrying. Oh, it's nice to see all the chats. Yeah, fantastic. Great, thank you for that. And if you try that, if you practice that for 5 or 10 minutes a day, you'll start to realize that that most things aren't that important. Some more comments there. Yeah, so crying is somebody's cried, so that's an emotional release of some things that can happen. but so don't worry about it. Almost falling asleep. That's fantastic. So what we did there was we created the environment for relaxation. So our bodies are totally de-stressed and our mind is not thinking backwards and forwards in time. Okay. If you wanted to have a guess at how long you had your eyes closed, most people say, well, it felt like sort of 3-5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, but you actually had your eyes closed for about 18 minutes. So a lot of people, as say, you know, we've got a lot on the call, so it's difficult to have a conversation, but a lot of people will feel that they didn't realize that they had their eyes closed for that long. And the reason that you've lost track of time is because your mind is no longer working on the clock. It's out of clock time, as it were. So because you were thinking about things that are happening now, and it's always now, if you think about it, it's never not now. So as you move from each moment to moment or minute to minute, it's still now. And if you if you're for some reason have forgotten about the actual passage of time on a watch or a clock, you tend to forget how long you've been doing something. Yeah, James feels a bit spaced out, and that can happen as well with people who are tired. And I've had this happen live in a room that I've been in. People have actually fallen asleep because it may be the first time that they've been able to relax their entire body and stop thinking and worrying about what's going on in their lives. So it's kind of mixed up with meditation a little bit. If anybody does yoga, at the end of yoga you do that relaxation for 5 or 10 minutes, and it gives your mind a chance to relax, to stop thinking, ruminating and worrying about your life. So this is why it's so great, because if you do that, as I say, for 5 or 10 minutes a day, the counting down, by the way, is for sleep. So don't do the counting down unless you want to fall asleep. I find that the best times to do it are either when I go to bed or in the morning before I get out of bed. And then, you start the day off with a kind of a fresh outlook. And it really is a great way of life. It's not just let's just enjoy it today for 45 or 50 minutes. It's a way of life and a practice. So if you do decide to start practicing this stuff, then you'll find that things do change, and what you worry about seems to fade away. And you start to come up with logical, calm solutions rather than chimp solutions, i.e. running away or fighting. I think most humans run away. If, for example, you were walking down the city centre road and a group of drunks fell out of a pub, unless you're the heavyweight Olympic boxing champion, you tend to walk away. You tend to get out of danger, and most humans do that. So mindfulness, that's one part of it, and hopefully most of you felt a bit of relaxation, maybe learned that it is possible to use mindfulness to help you get to sleep and have a better sleep. But if you want to learn more, I have videos on a YouTube channel. So just look up Russell Treasure, and that session we've just done is actually on YouTube. So what you could do is you could put it on your phone and play it whilst you're falling asleep and just listen to my voice for about a week. And then when you've learned the whole thing, then you'll be absolutely fine. But I mean, I'm open for questions. I know we've got 10 minutes or so left, and I'm going to hand over to Rebecca to wind us down. But if anybody's got any questions or any comments, please feel free to unmute or put something in the meeting chat. And hopefully you've enjoyed that little taste of mindfulness, which may lead you on to go into further into the whole thing and learning more and more and making your life easier. Okay, so I'll hand over to Rebecca now, and if anybody wants to ask questions, give me a shout.
Oh, thank you so much, Russell. A wonderful session as normal. I have the pleasure of sitting in on a few of these, and the level of relax that you feel afterwards is just brilliant. And I personally love seeing everyone's first time experience with them. I'll give obviously everyone a chance to ask some questions or pop any feedback or anything like that. But yeah, you're right, Alison. It's so relaxing, isn't it? I practiced mindful eating as well, mindfulness eating, and that's a really interesting one. I'm not sure if you've got anything to do with that on your channel, but it's a really good trick to help you feel full. If anyone needs that secret in their life. Now, we will, of course, be sharing a resource pack with everyone after this. So you will get a copy of the recording, and then following that, a resource pack of all the bits that Russell's spoken about today and other ways that we can support you and your colleagues and their well-being. Mental Health Awareness Week is really, really important to us. So I hope there's many ways that you guys are celebrating it too in your organisations. And we'll also be asking if you do get an opportunity to leave some feedback about the session. I'm not sure, Russell, if anything's come in and you want to talk out about that. I've seen a few bits pop in there.
Yeah. A couple of people have asked about the book, and the main one I recommend is The Chimp Paradox by Professor Steve Peters. He's written about 5. One's aimed at children and so on and so forth. But the first one, the main one, is The Chimp Paradox. I also highly recommend The Power of Now by a German guy called Eckhart Tolle, who went to university in England. And he's written a great book about being in the present moment. There are many, many other great books out there. But start off with The Chimp Paradox. And just so that everybody's aware, I struggled to read it. So I actually got it on audiobook, and it's much easier to get through on audio. So I listen to that in the car or falling asleep on my phone. But also on YouTube, if you look up John Kabat-Zinn, he's the kind of founder in the Western world and of mindfulness coming over to America and the UK, and he's got some great books and some great YouTube videos as well.
Fabulous.
Just reading some of the
Thank you
comments.
So much.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for your compliments. It was great. Right, Mark. Any advice in a situation where other people's chimps are attacking you? Yeah, one of the things in the book is that if he talks about a chimp offloading onto a human, okay? So if somebody says to you, can I just offload? And he actually advises you to get a chimp partner. And one will be in chimp mode because they're angry or sad or afraid of something, and the other will be in human. So the human listens to the chimp, but doesn't give any advice. So mindful listening is actually just listening. And then at the end, you could say something neutral like, listen, I don't know the answer to your problem, but I'm here to listen to you if ever you need me. So, and men, especially according to research, men want to fix things. So if you can, just keep your mouth shut. So if another person's chimp is attacking you and you can't escape, you can try and be neutral. So that the main thing is not to go into chimp mode if you can. So unless you're being physically attacked, and then you do need to fight or run away. If you can stay in human mode and stay neutral, then you've got a much better chance of the other person's chimp calming down, because Steve Peters reckons after about 10 minutes or so, the chimp gets tired and it's said everything it needs to say, or it's done what it needs to do, and it gets tired and falls back to sleep. So always try, if you're being attacked by a chimp, to try and stay in human. That's the main. But if you read the book, that will give you much more detail on how to do that. There's always a right time and a right place. But if you feel trapped, the main thing is just to stay human.
Russell, we've had another question from Sophia Clark in the Q&A section.
Yeah.
Are there any techniques to use when you feel fight or flight whilst in meetings? Sometimes you might feel challenged but can't leave the room.
Yeah, I think I would using mindfulness, I would use one of my senses. So it might be breathing. Nobody else knows you're doing it. is just listen to your breath and actually manage your breathing in and out. So allow your breath to slow down, and just don't get involved in any chimp fight activity, but just stay calm and listen to your breath, or feel your feet touching the floor, or use one of the senses to distract your mind from going on the attack in any chimp, with any chimp behavior. And I know it's difficult because I've spent years and years in the corporate world and been in meetings where I've been bored, or I've not agreed with the person who was talking to me, or whatever. But if you can have an agreement as a human, you don't have to go into chimp. You don't have to attack. You can stay calm and logical, rational, and have a conversation as a human. And what that tends to do, it brings the other person's human back out if you're not attacking them.
Thank you, Russell. I think the questions have died down a touch. Andrea, you will get a copy of that recording as soon as it's available. So hopefully you can find some time to go away and listen to that at a later time. Thanks again, Russell, for joining us and letting us celebrate Mental Health Awareness Week and holding such a wonderful session. Just a reminder again to everyone, please take a moment to leave some feedback, and of course you'll get those resources too as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.